I'm Natalee Watts. I'm a TV producer, director, and showrunner for unscripted television and documentaries. And when I'm not doing that, I love to design websites and shoot photography.
Welcome to the Art Podcast with me, Chris Stafford. This is the show where we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. And if you're just joining us for the first time, an extra special welcome, and I hope you'll share this with anyone you think might also enjoy the show. If you're on social media, you can find us at the Art Podcast, that's Art with 2 A's, on Instagram, and on Facebook, just look for Art. And you can also leave your comments, questions, suggestions for guests there as well. And also, you can email us if you prefer to do that. We can be found at hollowellstudios@gmail.com. We always love to hear from you and any suggestions, as I said, for guests that you think we should have here on the show from anywhere around the world of visual arts and indeed around the world. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please do take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review, because that improves our rankings and therefore helps others find the show. Our first guest of Season 2 is Emmy-nominated TV producer, showrunner and director Natalee Watts. Among her many credits, Natalee was Chef Jamie Oliver's producer for 2 seasons of ABC's Emmy Award-winning Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, and was a producer-director on his 7-part British documentary series Dream School for Channel 4. She was the co-creator, executive producer and showrunner for the 10-part documentary series Operation Change for the Oprah Winfrey Network, as well as the director and co-executive producer of the 10-part documentary series Kentucky Ayahuasca for Vice. Natalee has produced 38 episodes of ABC's Emmy-nominated Dancing with the Stars and 24 episodes of ABC's The Bachelor. She's also produced series for NBC, CBS, Fox, TBS, MTV, OWN, E! Entertainment, and Disney+. Recently, Natalee served as the co-executive producer of the CBS hit competition reality series Tough as Nails. Tough as Nails celebrates hardworking women and men who are essential to America's infrastructure. She has so far filmed in 31 countries around the globe. Natalee was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, the middle of 3 daughters to Evan Butch Watts, a retired financial services advisor and artist, and Vicky Tinken Watts, a teacher. After graduating from New Hanover High School, Natalee attended the Appalachian State University to study broadcast journalism and psychology. Once she decided to embark on a career in television, with her sights ultimately set on Hollywood, she headed for Chicago, where she had her first break in the business. For 5 years, she worked on the Jenny Jones talk show, starting as a PA and leaving as a producer. Natalee has gained extensive experience in different genres within the television medium, which have profoundly impacted her and now influence her future goals in TV production. In her spare time, Natalee enjoys designing websites and still photography and lives in LA with her partner, cinematographer Gretchen Warthen. Natalee, hi. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And you are the first guest on Season 2. So we're back again for a new season. And the first season we were just so excited about. We had some wonderful, wonderful people on, including your partner, Gretchen, of course, who persuaded me that I had to have you on, and for very good reason once I saw your bio. So welcome. I'm so glad that you've agreed to join me.
Oh, it's thank you for having me. Gretchen loved doing the podcast, and it's an honor to be here.
Well, there's quite a story to tell. When I look at your bio, it's very lengthy, very extensive. But of course, as we came through towards the end of last year, things slowed down a little bit for you in the business over there. So give us an update, Natalee, on what you're doing now.
Things did slow down with the strike and just a slowdown in Hollywood. During the pandemic, I do unscripted documentary TV. And during the pandemic, the unscripted world really picked up. And I just came off of a show, Tough as Nails, for CBS. I was the co-executive producer for 4 seasons of that. And what happened during the pandemic is we shot back-to-back seasons. So in a very short amount of time, we did 4 seasons in a row, which in turn gave, the network a full season that they hadn't aired. So they were sitting on already produced content. And I think that happened across the board for a lot of unscripted television during the pandemic, where they were just banking content. So this past year has been interesting because, a lot of shows that would typically continue to shoot were put on hold because they, for example, Tough as Nails already had a season in the can with CBS, so that aired this year. So there was a big slowdown, I think, with mergers, budgets, obviously the strike. So it's been an interesting year. I've had, during the pandemic, before I started on Tough as Nails, I started designing websites, and I've done a little bit of that this year, but I've also really thrown myself into pitching and creating different shows, and researching topics that I would love to be a part of telling the story. So I feel like Gretchen laughs at me at times because she says I have a job every single day, whether I have a job that is paying me or not. And I like to have a job, Chris. I like to, if I'm not on an actual show, I'm teaching myself how to do a website or to edit, or I'm watching Shonda Rhimes masterclass. So, and I've spent a lot of time with family this year. So it has been an interesting year in the business, but I have had, I have a lot of gratitude when I think about this year. I am very much ready to jump back on the horse, though. And I do feel that 2024 it's going to pick back up, especially in the unscripted world. And I'm excited about that.
So every day is a school day for you then? Every day.
Every day. Every day. Yeah. If I'm not learning something or putting a pitch deck together or researching something, I am doing a house project. I like to be busy. I like to, and I think this is why I love television. I like to see something at the beginning and see it at the end. When I was younger, I used to go to my friend's house and say, let's play apartment. And basically what that was is so I could just clean their room and I could see it from being messy to clean. So I like a job.
So you can see the fruits of your efforts then at the end of the day. And does that mean it has to be creative, not just productive?
I obviously lean a lot towards the creative. If it's a productive, like cleaning my house, I inevitably will rearrange something on a shelf just to see some sort of create something new. Everything I do, I feel like there's a sense of creativity put into it, even the most mundane things. I've always been that way, though. Keeps it interesting.
You're a very visual person then, because I know you enjoy still photography as well. You have a very, very good eye for still photography. Where did that come from?
My mom, growing up, my mom had a camera in our face all the time. And in early days, it was, it's stand by the azalea bushes and smile at each other in our Easter dresses. I mean, she was very, very Southern upbringing, but she had a great eye. And, I've looked back at some of her photographs, and she always had great composition. She was a very talented photographer. And I love taking pictures too early on, and I have taken pictures. Sometimes I think if my dream job would just be traveling the world taking pictures. I love it. And, in doing television, I also like to, I do also like to shoot moving pictures. I do shoot my own stuff, projects as well. I have a love for photography. It makes me feel something. And I do credit my mother for that because she was a very good photographer.
And your mum, Vicky's no longer with us, and she was a teacher, I understand, a substitute teacher. What else did she do?
She was a teacher. Yeah, my mom died in 2009. And before she had us, I'm one of three girls. I'm the middle. She was a full-time teacher. And then she raised my sisters and I and would substitute and for us in elementary school. And I loved it. I remember one time she was the substitute for my second grade class, probably 3 days in a row. And my mom was very beautiful and people loved her. And she had just a great energy about her. But I remember when she would substitute my second grade class, I would raise my hand. I mean, I've never raised my hand higher in my life. And she just wouldn't call on me. And when I got home, I said, Mama, you never call on me in class. And she said, well, I just don't want it to look like that I'm favoring you because, I'm trying to call on the other kids. But the next day, to her credit, she did call on me and I was so proud. And I don't even know what the question was. But yeah, she substituted and then she really raised all three of us. We were all 2 years apart. We are all 2 years apart. So it was a wild time in my household growing up. I'll tell you that.
Amy and Tricia were either side of you.
Correct.
So who did you spend the most time with? Did you do girly things?
It's funny. My younger sister and I, Tricia, there's a certain part in our life where we always laugh. We're like, where was Amy? When we were really young, Amy would boss us around and line us up and give us nicknames. And, she'd walk out of our sunroom in our house and we'd have to clap for her and things like that. She very much bossed us around. But as growing up, Tricia and I were really, really tight. We shared a bedroom until probably middle school. But then, we were all close, but I think probably when I went to middle school, we all kind of had our own life, even though we were 2 years apart. The most talking that we did normally was picking up the one telephone in our house and screaming at the other one to get off that it was our turn to call somebody. So there was a lot of, it was pre-cell phones, but we were, my mom always told us that she just wanted us to be, her dream was for us to be independent and be friends when we were older. And we're very close now. And we have a wonderful relationship. And when I think back about childhood, just with my mom and dad, my sisters, it was just wonderful. I mean, it was a ton of laughter in our house. We very much use humor in my family to move through life, which is a great thing. Until you probably should really talk about the hard stuff. But we had a great life. We had a great childhood and very, very close.
You were born in Wilmington, Delaware in 1975.
In Wilmington, North Carolina.
I'm sorry. Why did I say Delaware? Because there is a Wilmington.
Probably because you're up near there, right? Aren't you, in Virginia?
I am, but I shouldn't mistake the accent, should I? But okay, so down there in Wilmington, what was the very earliest memories for you?
Oh, Wrightsville Beach. We grew up in town in Wilmington, and at the time growing up there, it's a really sleepy coastal town. My grandparents were from there. My parents grew up there. A lot of family roots. And every summer we would spend at Wrightsville Beach, which was about 7 miles from our house. And it's a beautiful coastal island. And I think when I was 10 months old, I was on the beach in a playpen. I mean, we were born and raised at the beach, and we would. That was my earliest memories were, swimming in the sound, laying on the beach. We had my mom had three girls. My aunt Linda had three boys. So they lived in about an hour away. My cousins would come in every weekend, and we would gather at my grandmother's, and then we would all go to the beach. So my whole life was spent on the coast of North Carolina, which was fantastic.
Did that mean a lot of swimming, surfing, water sports generally? Were you into that? Yeah,
a lot of swimming, boogie boarding. I really regret that I didn't get into surfing back then. But it was more, we were boogie boarders. And we also swim in the Sound. So Wrightsville Beach is 2 islands, and, the waterway that goes by the mainland. It's the Intercoastal Waterway. Then you go over Main Bridge, and there's another island, and then you go over another bridge, which is the Sound water. So we were on boats. We were swimming in the Sound. We were jumping off the dock. Very picturesque. Where I don't know if you ever saw the show Dawson's Creek, but Dawson's Creek was filmed in Wilmington. So a lot of marshland, a lot of salt water, long docks. That was my childhood.
And at school, were you into sports then?
Yes, I was a basketball player in North Carolina. You're almost born a basketball player. But yes, I was a basketball player. I started playing basketball when I was 8 years old for church league. My dad was our coach. We were the champions. I mean, you would think my dad was, coaching the NCAA at church league basketball. He was so into it. But I was very good at basketball. Basketball became my an outlet for me. And I played all 4 years on varsity in high school. I did not play in college. I injured my knee. And I'm not quite sure I would have actually played in college, but through my formative years of growing up, early childhood into middle school into high school, it was really, it was my favorite thing to do. And it was probably the first time I ever felt that feeling of being in the flow, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. And does it mean that you preferred team sports then?
I love team sports. Yes, I ended up playing soccer in high school as well. I love team sports. And, I look at my career as a TV producer. It's it feels like a team sport all the time. You go on set, you've got a group of people. I say it's kind of like going to camp. You all are working towards one goal. So I love anything that has to do with a team. So yeah, basketball was a big part of my upbringing. And we, Michael Jordan's from Wilmington, North Carolina. So we like to claim that. We're very proud of that.
Absolutely. Now, what about school studies itself? Were you a good scholar? What did you like to do?
Academics. I was a good student. I made good grades, but I had to work really hard in school, if I'm going to be really honest with you. I was not a good test taker. So every extra credit project I had to do because I would panic during tests. The classes that were more hands-on or public speaking or things like that, I excelled in. But it's, academics of just test taking and stuff. It was hard for me. And I feel like that for a long time, I felt, I was a bit less than, it's like there'd been some of my friends were in real gifted programs and classes. And what I realize now is that I just, if I can touch it and I'm more of I just learned differently, if you will. I made the Honor Society. I mean, I had a good GPA leaving high school. I mean, I definitely worked really hard to get there. But it did not come easy for me. My sister could just go take a test and barely study. That was not me.
What kind of a child were you then? Were you confident? Because you're obviously a very confident person now, but did that start at an early age?
No. I mean, I was a very sensitive child. I am the middle. I worried a lot as a child. My mom was ill when she had cancer when we were really little. I was 3 and Amy was 5 and Trisha was 1. And she was gone a lot. And I think that during that time of my life, I started getting I had anxiety. And so I was always the peacemaker of my family or the jokester in my family. Still am. But I was a very sensitive child. And I definitely, I had confidence when it came to sports. And I think that really helped me feel feel a sense of pride. Growing up, I think that's where I really started feeling what confidence felt like. Because again, in school was not. It wasn't so easy for me. That's where I really, shined. So, but I wasn't, growing up, I was nervous. My mom always used to say, I had a nervous stomach, which I know now that was just simply anxiety. but I was a very, being a sensitive child, I picked up on a lot of people's energy and things like that. And at the time, I didn't realize what that was. But now, and what I do for a living and connecting with people, it's a real benefit because I feel like that sensitivity and that kind of being an empath, if you will, has helped me excel in the work that I do. And
when you were at school, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Were you starting to pick subjects that you favored, Natalee, or did that come later? How was that transition from school to college?
So, growing up, TV, I loved television. I mean, Norman Lear, Sanford and Sons, I know he just passed away, but Facts of Life, the Jeffersons, I love television. I also love movies. And but in Wilmington at the time, it was a very, like I said, a sleepy coastal town until 1983 when Dino De Laurentiis came to town and built a movie studio. And it was right after Drew Barrymore did E.T. and she was going to come to town because she was in Firestarter, this film that was coming. So my whole family, we all went and filled out our form because we wanted to be extras in the movie. I think the whole town pretty much did the same thing because it was like Hollywood was coming to town. And so we were picked to be extras in the film. I think my sister and I played soccer in a background scene. My mom and other sister took in groceries. My dad was he was in the airport scene. And, but while we were being extras and stuff, I got called in to interview to be Drew Barrymore's stand-in. And so it was me and 3 other girls at the time. And I remember the woman saying, I was 8 years old. And she said, we're going to have to cut your hair. And I was like, cut my hair off. Like, I just wanted to be in the movies, but I did not become Drew Barrymore's stand-in. But what it did do for me was it put me on set with cameras and action and, the actors were there. And it was for the first time I thought, okay, this isn't just on TV. This is a way of life. So I knew early on I would just want to go to Hollywood. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then also in Wilmington, we have this festival called the Azalea Festival. It's a big festival we have every year. And back in the 80s, it was a big deal. Kelly Ripa was our queen. I think Felicia Rashad was our queen one year, and actors would come in and we'd have a parade and, the Beach Boys would come, and it was a big deal. And my parents were, one season, they were escorts for Victor French. He was the actor. He was on Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon, and he was Mr. Edwards in Little House on the Prairie. And my parents volunteered to be his escort, if you will, for that weekend. Well, they became friends with him and his girlfriend at the time, and Victor French invited our family to Los Angeles. So in the 80s, my first flight was to Los Angeles, and we came here and we went and watched them film Highway to Heaven. I met Michael Landon. We went to dinner. We went to Victor French's house in the hills and drove drove through UCLA. I remember telling my dad I want to go to UCLA, and he told me I'd have to get a basketball scholarship if I wanted to go to UCLA, which of course did not happen. But I saw Los Angeles. And so all through high school, I had posters on my wall that, I'd cut out at the time. I guess it was a vision board. We didn't talk about things like that back then, but I had Bound for Hollywood. So I just knew that I had to get out of Wilmington, and I didn't have an exact plan other than when I got accepted to Appalachian State University. That's where I went to college. I wanted to major in the program there was broadcast journalism. And I thought, I'm going to get into journalism and writing and TV, and I'm going to minor in psychology. So that was kind of how that was my plan at the time. I kind of wish that I had, known of more outlets for maybe a film school but it just, that wasn't in my journey. And I do think that, it's been an interesting journey getting to where I am now, but I always knew, and all my friends from high school say, you're the only one that did what you said you were going to do. So I'm like, it's all because of Drew Barrymore, the Firestarter.
If only she knew. Or does she? Have you had the chance to tell her?
Have not had the chance yet. Maybe one day.
You mentioned your dad there, Evan, Butch, he was known as, and he's still with us in his late 70s now.
Yeah.
Tell us about the relationship you had with him as a child. Was he very encouraging of you and your career?
He is the finest man I know. And I say that he really is, Chris, the finest man I know. He was so encouraging with us growing up. He's so kind and gentle and thoughtful, and he was super encouraging of me and my sisters, and has always been. I mean, everything that we've done, he's always been our biggest champion. And a few years ago, I brought him, he came out here because I was nominated for an Emmy for Dancing with the Stars. And I said, do you want to come out here? And so I took him to the Emmys, and he loves TV too. And it was just so great to watch him. He was very proud and excited, but yeah, he's always been just an amazing support system and positive role model for me and my sisters.
So take us through college then. After you graduated from Appalachian State, did you have a sense of direction at that point then, Natalee? Was it becoming more clear?
I graduated from Appalachian, which is in Boone, North Carolina, which was absolutely freezing. And I thought I'd never want to live in the cold again. But that summer, I had friends who lived in Chicago, and they ran a family business. And I thought, I'm going to go see them this summer. And I got on the plane because I knew Oprah was in Chicago, and I knew that there was a couple other television shows there. And I thought, I'm just going to go see what Chicago's like. And if I get back to North Carolina and I land in North Carolina, I'm going to go tell my parents I'm moving to Chicago. Well, I went out there. It was beautiful in Chicago. We went to the Blues Fest, and my family friend said, you want to come work for our bakery distribution business? You can answer the phones and do the faxing. And he's like, I'll give you a job. And I said, yes. So I came back to North Carolina, and I sat my parents down, and I said, I'm moving. I want to move to Chicago. And they said, great, you can work for the business for 4 months, and then you've got to find a job in the career that you just went to school for. And I said, all right. And so I took off to Chicago, not realizing that is the coldest place in the country. I mean, it is just absolutely beautiful. Amazing city, freezing ass cold. But so I went there, and I just loved being in the city. And I thought I've got to get I didn't really know how I was going to get into television. After I worked for my family friend's company for 4 months, I signed up at a temp agency, and I said, this is what I want to do: entertainment. I do any, I think I was with them for a week. They placed me at a magazine one day, and I don't know, I was just boring. I was just sitting at desk. But on that Friday, they called me on a Thursday. They said, we're going to place you at the Jenny Jones talk show. And I thought, here we go. So I remember I was like, fantastic. So Friday, I walk into the Jenny Jones talk show, and it was a show day. And so it was in the office. It was hustling. I mean, people were, talking. They had the TVs going. They were shooting a show on the stage, 2 floors below in the studio. And I was so excited that at the end of the day, I went to the general manager and I said, I went to school to do this. This is what I want to do. I will work for you for free. Can I just come here every day? And she said, you know what? We might have a PA job available. I will let you know, by mid next week. So I thought, so on Wednesday, she called me. She said, we want to hire you as a PA. And I just never looked back. So I was at the Jenny Jones talk show for 5 years. And I started as a PA, and I left as a producer. And it was the wildest time. It was just an amazing, wild time in Chicago.
What were those big lessons that you were learning then in those 5 years? That because not only did it launch the start of your career, but it transitioned you early on, right? I mean, that was the first big job, and off you went.
Yes, I learned so many things. I think that that was, I think, the biggest thing that I learned. Being born and raised in North Carolina and going to school in the mountains, I lived a very, pretty sheltered life in that I just, we didn't travel much growing up. We were very much with family and friends and a beautiful upbringing. But when I got to Chicago and I started booking the show and answering the phones, I met people from all walks of life. And really from what I learned in 5 years being there is that we're all the same. And, I think that it was a very, the Jenny Jones show had wild topics. I mean, we dealt with exotic dancers and out of control teens and people who needed paternity tests and all these things out on the surface that it's easy to judge the topics that we would have on the show. But what I learned very quickly is just how amazing so many of these people were. And it really became about those relationships. And my goal as a producer there was that they were going to be just excited to meet me as they were Jenny when they came to Chicago. And that was the case. And it was just a great lesson in acceptance and not being judgmental and finding ways to relate with all types of people. I look back at my career now and I think that was such a gift because it has helped me tremendously in the past 20 years. But another thing this was pre-cell phones, internet. We kind of got the internet a little bit at the end of the run of the show. She was on for 12 years and I worked for 5 seasons, the last 5 seasons of her show. But you had to be super, super resourceful. I mean, you talk about hard. I mean, we were pulling 80, 100-hour weeks. If people would call into the show, we would answer it and write down their phone number. And, we'd always try to ask for 2 numbers because inevitably somebody's number was going to be disconnected or it's the wrong number. But if we had to find somebody, we would call, like say we'd have an address and we had to be so resourceful that we would call the local Domino's Pizza. And, they'd answer the phone and be like, hey, this is Natalee from the Jenny Jones Show. And they're like, and of course, everybody knew the Jenny Jones Show. It was a hot, hot show. I mean, daytime talk show was at its peak in the 90s. I mean, they were pulling in huge ratings that you would never get on prime time today. So everybody knew the Jenny Jones Show. They'd be really excited to talk to you. And we would tell them, look, we need you to send a pizza to this address. And I need you to, hey, do you have a Sharpie? Yeah, I've got a Sharpie. I need you to write this 1-800 number on the pizza box and tell them to call Natalee at the Jenny Jones Show. And we would give them our card or whatever to pay for the pizza. And then inevitably you get a call like, I just got a pizza from the Domino's Pizza. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then we try to book them for the show. But, we dealt with, a lot of people didn't have, this was pre 9/11 too. And, they wouldn't have, some people didn't have an ID. So we'd send them to Kinko's to get a photo ID and say, you need to get on the, get your birth certificate, get your Kinko's ID. And we'd walk people through how to fly across country because a lot of people had never, ever left their hometown. So it was just you could figure anything out and you had to. I mean, we would do reunion shows where we would get on Nexus Lexus to reunite people or find people. And that was our database. I mean, there was no Google back then. So it really taught me a really strong work ethic and how, as a producer, you just have to solve your own problems. And it is, everybody that worked with me at the Jenny Jones Show, even people prior that I didn't work with, if you meet them it's kind of like a distant cousin. It's like if you went through the Jenny Jones Show, it's just an automatic level of respect because it was very hard work, but a ton of fun at the same time. I mean, just wild. So, yeah, it was. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I think it was the perfect training ground for me to get out of my small Southern bubble and to just kind of expand my mind, if you will.
Did you slip on any banana skins in those early days?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I've done that a lot. I mean, that's where you learn, isn't it? But I've had great people along the way who, good mentors and good, I've slipped on some banana peels. Have you slipped on some banana peels?
No, lots along the way.
Makes you a better producer, doesn't it? It's like, ooh, won't do that again.
When I think about your career, though, Natalee, and you took the path that you did, and it's really worked out for you, obviously. But was there ever a time, given that your initiation into the film business in the early days, that you thought, I might give acting a go?
Never. No, I just, if I look back, I think I was always searching for what is my true role in the business. And I think that's kind of been part of my journey of I went from talk shows to I did the early days of The Bachelor when it was the height of, it's still super obviously successful, but I think I did, the 5th and 6th season. And so I did 3 seasons of that, which was fascinating. And it brought me into the reality world of television. It got me out of talk shows. And I love that because, talk shows are extremely hard work. Well, the talk shows in the 90s were, now it's more celebrity driven. It's still hard work. But I like the reality world. And, I was fortunate enough to be the Bachelor producer for the first 2 international seasons of The Bachelor. So when we took the show to Paris, I was his producer. And to be the Bachelor producer, it's not just, you're not his handler. Like, you were interviewing him and talking to him. It's like therapy for 2 months straight of processing the experience with him, and help guiding him through that experience. So when I really got down to starting to interview people, that's when I thought, oh yeah, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what I like to do. And I have, since then, that's kind of driven the projects that I'm able to be on. And I've had some people kind of go one route. I've really kind of moved around in the unscripted world because I've looked at every job as, what am I going to learn here? It's kind of like, how is this going to make me a better producer? Or, I did the early days of, like I said, Bachelor. Then I went to the Dancing with the Stars world because I wanted to do live, a live show. And that was fascinating. But 2 years of that, then I was ready to move on. So I've never wanted to be in front of the camera. I've always loved being behind the camera. And I've always loved interacting with the talent. That's my forte, really.
Well, you mentioned earlier going to Chicago because Oprah was there, and you actually co-created an exec producer 10-part documentary series for the Oprah Winfrey Network, Operation Change. How did that come about?
That was an interesting one. So there's a foundation called the Starkey Hearing Foundation out of Minneapolis. And Bill Austin, who started that foundation, he's done mission work for years, giving people free analog hearing aids around the world. So for years, he's been recycling analog hearing aids and traveling to countries to, give people the gift of hearing, because a lot of people aren't deaf. They just don't have medical aid. So he had an idea with his son, Stephen, to shoot them traveling the world in the work that they did. So I came onto that show as a co-executive producer in the early days. At the time, they wanted to take some kids around the world, and we had a cast of characters. And the direction of the show quickly just changed. It was, how do I put this? what we realized in going to different places was it really wasn't about the story of, 6 Americans going to, developing nations. It was really about the people, there making sustainable change and, working with the Starkey Heron Foundation. So we restructured the show. And I eventually, Stephen Sawalich believed in me and gave me the opportunity to executive produce the show. And we traveled to 13 countries and shot a series with the family, working in different places and teaming up with other NGOs that were doing work. It was a life-changing experience. I had, earlier in my career, I did a show for E! Entertainment where I had traveled to Saint-Tropez and, all the hottest, richest places that people go. We were, at the time, we were on yachts and, it was just kind of this lavish lifestyle. And I'd seen the world kind of through that lens. And with Operation Change, it was the opposite. And we went to, we went everywhere from Haiti to deep in Palestine, to Lebanon, to Papua New Guinea, to Ethiopia, to places where, you might think, oh, there's just not a lot of good going on there because we don't hear about it. But what we found and what was so beautiful about the experience is there was a lot of amazing people doing amazing things. And it was really, it's kind of like how the, Jenny Jones kind of opened my eyes to the States, the E! Entertainment show kind of opened my eyes to, this bougie world. But this show just opened my eyes to just the world and how at the end of the day, we're all just searching for connection, and it was an extremely intense 3.5 years of my life. We shot the show without having a home for the show. And then, we're fortunate enough to, OWN was interested in the show and we found a home on OWN, which was great because as we all know, Oprah does, many wonderful things in the world. So it was on brand with kind of her mission in life. But it was powerful. And it took me, after I ended that, it took me a bit to kind of get myself back together after that series, to be honest with you, because we would go on the road we might do 3 back-to-back countries. And I remember we went to India, South Africa. Maybe it was just in India, South Africa, and Colombia. And we came back and I remember going out to dinner and it was so loud in the restaurant and I could hear, it's like somebody had turned the volume up on all the conversations that were going on around me. And they were all just such, I don't know. It was just, it's in that moment I thought, wow, what people are talking about here really doesn't matter. Like, because I started to see the world in a different way. And it was a very spiritual experience for me.
What years were they?
2011 until 2014. And
you had an interesting mix of personalities on their show too.
Yes, we had, it's early. I remember this is the power of kind of speaking into if you kind of talk about what you want in your life. Years prior, I would always say, I just want to travel the world with, big global change makers and, people doing stuff and celebrities and go to travel the world. That's all I would say. Well, this was that show. What I didn't, but which was amazing. And when I got the opportunity, although it was extremely difficult a lot of the times, I always would tell myself, you asked for this. This is what you put out into the world that you wanted to do. So you just have to learn, because there were times where I definitely was learning as we went. We all were. And we became a fine-tuned machine. We were traveling and, I was interviewing Richard Branson. Elton John was with us. Maria Bello was with us. Donna Karan. We were with her in Haiti. Just people who have dedicated part of their life to, Donna Kieran was amazing because she works with the artisans in Haiti, and she's fascinating to travel with. Marley Matlin went with us in Colombia, and she worked the hearing. We had a hearing. People would come in and we'd fit them for hearing, and then we went out into the neighboring neighborhoods, and she traveled with us and talked to the kids. And it was just, it was an interesting cast of characters for sure. The most impressive characters were the people we met in the countries we were in, and the women. I say women, there was men and women, but there was a lot of amazing women making huge sustainable change and leading, in Papua New Guinea. There's a woman named Esther, and she would go out to the neighboring warring tribes, hour and a half from the city town really where she lived. And she started teaching the villagers about sanitation, about, building latrines, about the importance of washing your hands, how to wash your hands, how to wash your dishes. And we went, just some basic sanitation stuff that we all think for granted, but, these villagers and these tribes, no one had ever taught them that. And Esther was transforming this section of Papua New Guinea, and we went in with her and went to these villages and helped them build latrines, plant trees, and it's just fascinating. To me, the villagers of Papua New Guinea were, they had lived through warring with the neighboring tribe for decades. They had, had to escape and live in caves for a long time. And they had, I think they had been they got their land back probably 15 years prior and had transformed their village. And it was beautiful. It was, obviously everything made from trees and things from around. It was just made from the land, but they were the most pure people. They weren't in the sense that, we would leave when we left. We went twice, actually. When we left the first time, the women wailed and the men wailed, crying for 3 hours. They danced with us for 3 hours. They were very open in their emotions. The men and women in their society had equal ownership in what they did. They weren't affected by the internet. They weren't affected by, and granted, life was not easy all the time, and there was illness, and they had a lot to learn, but there was such a pure, happy spirit I just looked at this society and thought, this is an untouched area of the world where people they loved each other. They told stories about each other, and it was just to see that. And it was very powerful. And at the same time, of all the places we traveled internationally, we had the most heightened security with us in Papua New Guinea. They had to move us around in a very strategic way, with big guns, because, we were out in the middle of nowhere. So it was this, lightness and darkness of the journey. It was really, really powerful, and it changed my life.
I can imagine it would. And I would imagine also there's so many things that you've done, Natalee, really meaningful productions, but on a similar line, you really made an impact as exec producer on the short film We Are Thorn for Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore, because that too was doing something very meaningful in trying to combat child sexual exploitation and human trafficking online. So these are really meaningful causes that I can imagine would have a lasting impact on you as a person. Well, what did you take from that one particularly? Because very different to what you were doing in those other countries.
Very different. And, I credit Stephen Sawalich and Starkey, because when I was working for him and the foundation doing Operation Change, that opportunity to interview Ashton and Demi about We Are Thorn came, and he gave me the opportunity to be a part of that. And, that was a very different project. And that taught me a lot, and very difficult subject of human trafficking online, and how that there was that died down, and then the internet has brought that back. It was powerful, and it's my first time. What really opened my world as far as telling meaningful stories, and the power really that you have to do, doing TV and being a producer, was when I worked with Jamie Oliver. And he came to the States, and we did Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, where we went to, in Britain, he had transformed the British school food system. He had gone in and seen the quality of the food and the lack of nutritional value. And he had sat down with Tony Blair, and I think he secured, 270 pounds to put into the school system. Well, he came over here, and ABC commissioned the show over here for us to go. At the time, it was Huntington, West Virginia, the most unhealthy city in America at the time. And we went into the schools, and I was fortunate enough to be his personal, producer on that. And then I was the one that interviewed him we were there for 3 months, interviewed him every single day about, where his head was, what he was thinking, the resistance that he was getting, just kind of the process. And just that experience of having those conversations day in and day out with him shifted me, because not only did I really realize the power in just having something to say. And Jamie and I are the same age. We were born in the same year. So we had a connection there, but just his passion and his, how he really channeled his passion into the work that we were doing was very powerful for me. And then when it aired, and at that time, social media wasn't obviously what it is now. That was 2011. No, sorry, that was 2009. It aired in the first one, we did 2 of them. It aired in 2010. But the groundswell of conversation and how it upset people, and how it had started, people started talking about food, and really what it did for me personally, because my relationship with food, I didn't really consider having a relationship with food, and that I just ate what I grew up eating, and I didn't really ever think about what I was eating or where my food came from. So the experience working with Jamie and seeing what that show did for the American audience and what it did for me personally, really at that point, I thought, this is the type of storytelling that I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of things that spark a conversation, that move the needle, because I am in a very powerful position being a television producer. And this medium is just brilliant. You can really, really wake a lot of people up if done the right way. It also could be, misused. But so when Operation Change came after Jamie Oliver, I started on this journey of being very fortunate in driving my career with the projects that I took. And so when, Operation Change was talk about doing good. I mean, that it was, that was on a global scale of storytelling. And I have been very fortunate, since then to really be a part of projects, the majority of them that I've done since then, that have really celebrated people and had started conversations that people might not think about. But I credit that, Chris, to, in 2009, my mother died. And in 2009 is when I met Jamie Oliver and worked with him. And I feel like she had her hand in that, because, and I feel that she has helped guide my career, because it's not been a traditional journey for me. I feel that she's very much been a force in driving me throughout my different projects.
Are you religious in any way? I mean, was that your upbringing? Does that play a part in your life now?
I grew up in the Lutheran church, and I don't know if you know much about Lutherans, but we sing a lot. growing up in church, even though it's my mom, none of us really wanted to go on Sundays and mama would make us go. What that gave me, because I never felt like I quite fit in and I didn't quite understand it at the time. I felt like what I got from it was having faith. And I did love, who doesn't, I love the story of Jesus and God. And I love that big picture aspect of it. I never felt like I fit in, just in, the church. I've always been a bit of a seeker, and I do consider myself very spiritual. I've taken a lot from people I've learned, and I took a lot from growing up in the church that, I carry that with me. I consider myself more a spiritual person rather than a religious person. And the thing about my mom was, and she grew up, she was really into the church, but she was also very much a seeker at the same time. I mean, she loved Sylvia Brown. She loved any self-help book Oprah talked about, she'd buy it. Like she was, and after she passed away, I found all these books were underlined and notes and like little, page turns on just the power of positive thinking and how to manifest. And then I found books from when she was younger that she was really into UFOs. So I do feel that my mom was very much a seeker of all things. And I feel that that's the path that I've gone on. And I feel like traveling the world and being around different religions, I've taken something from those as well. Like I just look at it as my religion is love.
Well, you did come across His Holiness the Dalai Lama, didn't you, whilst you were on Operation Change? I
did. He was in the shoot. I didn't personally meet him. Yes, that was powerful to have him a part of our project, obviously. Yeah.
So thinking of how your career has gone, starting off with The Bachelor, Dancing with the Stars, those kind of shows, and now doing these, which are much more sort of heavyweight, if you will, and impactful shows. Is this where you're going to steer your career now when you're pitching new story ideas? Yes, that's the goal. If it's a story I feel that is empowering and can help people, I'm all about it. I did a series, in 2018 about ayahuasca, the psychedelic tea. I've never, the project came to me in a way that was very intriguing for me because psychedelics was not something that has ever been on my radar, but I had heard about the healing properties of ayahuasca. So that sent me on a journey living for 3 months in Kentucky with a shaman and his wife and their son doing healing ceremonies through ayahuasca. And it was very powerful. And it was a different type of story that I had told before because it can be a bit controversial, but I went in just with an open mind and an open heart and fell in love with the family doing it and how it had changed their life. And I watched it transform. I think we did 20 ceremonies and 50 people who were really struggling with PTSD, childhood sexual trauma, opioid addiction, alcoholism, really, really difficult things in their life. And they shared their story and their experience with us. And that changed me too. I think that as I look towards the future and, of what I want to be a part of, I always want to learn something and open my own mind. And I want to look for stories to celebrate things that people might not always think about. Tough as Nails, CBS, has opened my mind tremendously to the trades, women and men in our country and the artistry that goes into, carpentry, welding, cement, I never really thought if you pass by a construction site, for me, I had just never really thought about it. Oh, there's people over there working, and to do 4 seasons with some of the best in the business and in their trades in the country and realizing that they do keep the country
going. I don't look at things the same. It changed me. It gave me such a respect for just the craft behind working with your hands, and also the amazing opportunity for a lifestyle and benefits, and it's just such a great outlet for people. And that changed me. So, every job I do, the last big job I was on was Tough as Nails. It was such a spiritual experience for me in that way. Like you just hope that you continue to, I just have to hope and pray that I continue to be a part of projects like that really just expand my mind and, celebrate people. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is, isn't it? It's storytelling, and it's sharing.
That kind of answers my next question. I was going to see if you could frame the most fulfilling way of spending a day at work.
Most fulfilling day. A good day for me is arriving on set, having coffee with the team, having a laugh, going through what we're supposed to do for the day, shooting, Tough as Nails, shooting a challenge and just watching in real time the relationships with the teams and the people unfold and the outcome of the challenge, and then interviewing them and having an emotional connection to the people who are going through this experience and driving the story through interviews, and having a nice wrap at the end of the day. I mean, my favorite thing to do, and the reason that I continue in this business, which is fantastic, and it's also extremely difficult at times, and you have to always. There's a lot of self-talk for me that goes into being a television producer, and in an ever-changing business, if you will. But, the main thing that keeps me going is interviewing. And I can interview all day long. And that's a good day for me. Other than, basketball was the first time I experienced being in the flow, but interviewing is when I can really be in the flow. And I feel that, and it's like a drug for me. I love sitting down and talking to people, and then you walk away and you don't even know what you said, but it just changed you in a way. And you go back and look at the footage and you put the puzzle together. And so in the field, that's a good day. In post, I love putting the puzzle together in post. And an ideal day for me is framing a scene and finding the perfect music, because the best documentary series or unscripted moments for me are the ones where it's, you experience them on screen and it's like watching music. And I think pacing and music and the visual choices of your shots, when you all see it come together. I mean, there's just nothing better. That's when I get really, really, I give a lot of thanks for being able to do this for a living. It's such a fun, creative job that really forces you to always try to up your game and to think outside the box. And nothing can, it's just a nice challenge.
Yeah, that's when the goosebumps come, isn't it? When you're in the edit suite and all of these pieces come together at the end of the day and they fit, and it's a high.
It's a high. And sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, that's the perfect bite. But for me, it's music. I take a lot of time with music because it can make or break a scene. It could just, I'm musically, I've always been a musical person. And when the track hits perfect and the bites line up and the shots are, slow motion, it's a good day.
It is magic unfolding. And we did discover that we have similar tastes in music too.
Yes. Yes. I love Pink Martini. The first time I experienced Pink Martini was at the Hollywood Bowl. And it was, the entire band was there. China Forum, Storm Large was there. Doc Severinsen was there, and it was so magical. It was like watching a show. And what I love about them is they're really a band of the world, aren't they? I mean, they have,
the United Nations bands.
They really are. It's like you've got all different languages, in the music. It's the storytelling for who joins them on stage. I mean, I think it's an absolutely beautiful experience. And so, yes, when you said you are a fan of Pink Martini, I took my dad to the Hollywood Bowl, and he didn't know who they were. And Gretchen and I learned from her mom, because her mom is super cool and hip. And she's like, you got to go see Pink Martini. So we took my dad. He was in town, and we didn't tell him anything about it. And he, at the very end, he turned to me and he said, that was the best concert I've ever been to in my life. And I said, yes, me too.
I just wanted to touch on how your personal life fits in with such a hectic schedule. When you're on a shoot and you're gone for some periods of time, location, how you fit in, how you juggle your life, because Gretchen also has a very busy life too. Tell us about your story, how you guys got together and how that works so successfully now.
She was shooting on a show I was on. It was day one. And I was looking at the monitor, and she shot just some horses' hooves going through the frame, which seems super simple. But the shot was just, I don't know. I thought, who shot that? And so I realized at the time that she was on my team. And so we met on a show. We were friends for a while, for quite some time, actually. And then she was the director of photography on Operation Change. And we traveled the world together and fell in love every country at a time, and have been together ever since. And the beauty of our relationship is that she is so talented, and at times I'm like, you're my muse. I mean, she really inspires me and my creativity. She really has helped me blend the world of camera with storytelling. It's just been a really beautiful journey together, since we're both in the business, but we're on two sides of the business. I produce and she is a cinematographer. So, we really are each other's cheer girl. And although at times when we're, when I was in Kentucky for 3 months, we don't see each other, we deal with it, because each of us would never stand in the other one's way. I joke, because I tell her I'm her manager, and she'll say, I got a call to go to, and South Africa. I'm like, you got to go. I mean, we just are always pushing each other to improve our craft and to expand ourselves. And I do think that the separation and the distance at times and coming back together and sharing in the experiences has really made the relationship rich. And I think that we both are such explorers and adventurers that even though we would much prefer to travel and shoot a show together, or even just travel the world playing, it's we support each other, and it makes us both excited because we have dreams. And I would not be where I am today in my career if it hadn't been for her support. She's really pushed me, and I feel like I've pushed her, and we see a lot of things in each other that maybe we might not see in ourselves. So it just makes for we have an exciting life, Chris. We really do.
It sounds like it. Well, I was going to ask you what is your favorite way to spend a day when you're not at work then?
Oh, well, we love walking. We're on a thing right now where we like to walk 5 miles a day. We love to go, look at a vintage store. We like to go have coffee. But we also, what we really love to do is buy a one-way ticket somewhere. And we did this in 2019 where we're like, let's just go to Italy and buy a one-way ticket and come back, and one of us has to go to work, or we get on each other's nerves, or we run out of money. And we had to come back because we had to go to work. But we spent a month just traveling around, and just from one place to the other. We didn't plan very much. We did the same thing we took off, which was supposed to be a 2-week trip up the coast of California, like driving all the way to Oregon. and which ended up being a month. And I said, well, gosh, if we're going to go to Oregon, we need to go to the Goonies house. So we drove up there and saw where they shot the Goonies, and then turned around and came back and spent a month because we both didn't, at the time we were on breaks from our jobs. And so we like to travel. We like to, we can be content just hanging out in one room all day or jumping on planes, trains, and automobiles. But we also really like to work together. So that's fun too.
And finally, because I do like to get to know my guests and what really makes them tick. And one of those ways to find how people's minds work is ask them what they read. So what's on your nightstand right now?
Oh, Save the Cat, writing a television series. I'm telling you, it's always a job. Yeah, I just finished. I don't read a ton. I got to be really honest with you. I go in spurts where I read. I read all the Light We Cannot See, which is a beautiful book. But right now, sometimes I have Save the Cat by my bed. I did have the Jenny Jones novel because I was working on something with that. I really was going to read that. But you know what? I dive into narrative television. I got to be really honest with you. We're watching Happy Valley season 3 right now, and I like television.
Would not expect anything less, Natalee. And you have very, very eclectic taste in TV shows, a lot of them British. So you've picked a lot of nice shows that you're enjoying. The
British television is the best. You know what I like about British television? Sometimes you just see somebody loading a dishwasher. They just slow it down. It's nice sometimes to sit there. American TV can be like snap, crackle, and pop sometimes. And I do love American TV too, but it's nice to go to Britain. But yeah. Well, that's a great note to end on, Natalee. This has been fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Oh, thank you. It's such an honor to chat with you. I appreciate your time. And if you'd like to follow Natalee on Instagram, there's a link in the show notes to that, and also to her website and to her IMDb profile. And finally, a reminder that Season 2 now drops on a Tuesday at 5:30 a.m. Eastern. So if you follow and subscribe, your podcast app will refresh automatically. I'll be back next week when my guest will be the artist Christine Lashley. So I do hope you'll join me then.